Since the spring summer collection has just officially started hitting Hermes stores, I figured it might be fun to do a little refresh, I guess, on some of the standout bags that hopefully you'll find on shelves in the coming month. So without further ado, if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the latest and greatest Hermes launches, which to be honest, there aren't that many new designs. In fact, most new launches are just reinterpretations of at one point iconic Hermes bags, including the Shoulder Birkin, the Constance Elan, and more. But regardless, if you'd like to know everything that there is to know about these pieces, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. Now, most of these pieces we have already looked at and talked about in previous What's New from Hermes videos, but it's been quite a few months, so I thought it might be nice to have a little refresher on what's going to be in store soon. And I would also love to know your thoughts on how I should continue doing What's New from Hermes updates, because I usually do one as soon as press images become available, as soon as I get any sort of intel that is of course reliable, and right after fashion shows. But then these pieces don't actually hit stores for 9 months to a year, if not any longer than that, and I don't want these videos to become too repetitive. So please let me know if you'd prefer me to do them as soon as I have any insights, or if you'd prefer me to wait with these until these pieces actually start arriving in stores, because of course I can do both, but I wouldn't want to waste your time by talking about the same pieces over and over again. So please let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'll do a poll over on Instagram to see what you would prefer. If you would prefer me to start talking about these pieces as soon as I get an intel, or if you would prefer to wait until we have even more information available and expected launch dates. Obviously, when it comes to Hermes, you never know when and if they're going to launch something. So I'm going to say expected or estimated launch dates, but I would love to hear your thoughts because I wouldn't want these two videos to become kind of redundant. But let's start with a piece that I mentioned in the intro, which is of course the Shoulder Birkin. Now this is a piece that was designed under Jean-Paul Gaultier's creative direction, and it has definitely become one of the most iconic and most sought after Hermes pieces, even though it's personally not my cup of tea. Previously, I think it was available in 2 different sizes, although it was the larger size that was more popular, which was 42 centimeters long. And it was a much shorter take on the original Birkin bag. And I know that 42 centimeters sounds like a lot, especially if you like a smaller Birkin. But these bags were still a lot more streamlined and definitely not quite as overwhelming as a large Birkin would be because of how shallow these bags were. So basically imagine a Birkin 40 being chopped in half and the Shoulder Birkin only being the top part of the bag, and other than the proportions of the bag being reshaped, it's also the straps that made this bag quite different from the original Birkin, because they increased the strap length, which is of course where the name comes from. So the idea is that these are bags that you are able to carry over your shoulders, which is not something that most people are able to do with the original Birkin lineup, purely because the handles are too short for most people to put them over their arms and onto their shoulders. But these were basically a more casual, laid back, sort of workhorse take on the original Birkin lineup, and they were also a little bit more reasonably priced than regular Birkins because of course you got less back for your money. Now there was also a Shoulder Kelly, which is not making a comeback, at least not yet. But if you're interested in the Shoulder Birkin, do keep in mind that they are introducing a new size for the Shoulder Birkin. In a smaller size, it's going to be 29 centimeters long, and then they're also doing it, I think the other size is 39 centimeters, so it is a little bit smaller than the original Shoulder Birkins were. But the Shoulder Birkin is making a comeback in 2 different sizes, and so is the Constance Elan, which, to be really honest with you, I didn't realize it was ever discontinued because it's not a bag that I ever considered. Similar to the Shoulder Birkin, it is a more elongated, stretched out take on the original Constance design, which I think these days they call these bags east-west bags, which I really don't like. I think I have talked about this before, but when I was in college, I used Photoshop a lot. And when you're working with Photoshop, it is so easy to distort a picture by stretching it without simultaneously increasing the height. And that's kind of what these bags remind me of. To me, they just look like a mistake, a deformed take on the original design. It's like they stretched the bag, but they forgot to make it taller at the same time. To me, they just look kind of, yeah, misshapen and deformed. I'm not a big fan, but I understand why people enjoy them, because you can make a really sleek small bag that also fits a little bit more than a small bag would, because if the bag is longer, it is easier to fit things like a smartphone in there, or keys, something a little bit larger and longer that you would not be able to fit into a smaller traditional mini bag. So I completely understand the hype, but personally it's not my cup of tea. So it is definitely not a bag that is being added to my wish list. But if you love the original Constance Elan, keep in mind that it is making a comeback. I have not seen this bag in person, but I have seen the original Constance Elan quite a few times. I don't know why that is, but it tends to be quite popular in exotic leathers. So I do have friends who own the Constance Elan in exotic skin. And to me, based on the pictures, it seems that the new Constance Elan is just a little bit more delicate. It just feels a little bit slimmer in a weird way. Of course, I have to wait to actually see this bag in person and have the chance to play around with it, but that's my first impression. And I do know that the new re-edition Constance Elan also comes with a mirror, just like the re-edition original Constance bags that I think were brought back last year or the year before. And the new Constance Elan isn't the only bag in today's video that features a mirror, which I don't know what this new mirror hype is all about, but I thought I would point it out in case you're interested. So the Constance Elan and the Shoulder Birkins are making a comeback. So if you're looking for a more casual, more relaxed take on both of these iconic designs, make sure that you speak to your boutique about these as soon as you can. I almost forgot, but the Constance Elan measures 25 centimeters. So it's not that much bigger than the Constance 24, which is, well, it's not the biggest bag in the Constance lineup, but it is the biggest in the core line. And the Constance Elan is only a centimeter longer, yet it feels a lot more compact and a lot narrower just because it is so much shorter. So if it's a bag that you have never seen before, do keep in mind that it measures 25 centimeters, but it's definitely not as bulky as the original Constance 24. Now, if you love the idea of a crossbody bag, something that you can dress up but also dress down, but you're looking for a bag that is not quite as loud and widely recognized as a Constance bag, I think you'll be happy to hear that the Fonsbelle is being resurrected, which is a bag that was discontinued a really long time ago. But the new Fonsbelle is being relaunched in box. It is a lot more boxy than the Constance line, so I think it's actually quite comparable to a Chanel Classic flap. So if you like things along the lines of the Chanel Classic flap, but you're not a fan of quilting, or if you're not a fan of Chanel in general, this is kind of a similar shape, and I think it would add a similar facet to your collection, except it is a lot cooler in my opinion. So it comes in box. It has a really interesting equestrian inspired buckle that is the fastening on the front part of the bag, and unlike the original Fonsbelle bag, which featured the same strap as the Constance bags do, this one comes with a really heavy, chunky metal chain, which I love the look of. And just like the Constance Elan, the new Constance Elan, this bag also comes with a built-in mirror. And while we are on the topic of really bold, chunky chain details, there is another bag that is actually inspired by the brand's harness making heritage. It's inspired by Hermes' very first jewelry collection that I think launched in the 1930s, and it has not only remained in the jewelry line, but it's something that inspired bags. There was a bag called the Bouclier shoulder bag, which was kind of similar to the Fonsbelle bag, and also the Constance, which was really quite short-lived. It was produced by the same craftspeople who made the Kelly bag, and I think there were only a handful of craftspeople at Hermes who were able to create this bag because it required such meticulous attention to detail. Now that was a really beautiful but short-lived collection, and it is now making a comeback. However, it is going to be in the form of a clutch bag in box leather, which features this incredible Fonsbelle chain as its fastening, and it also comes with a removable shoulder strap. So if you love a clutch bag, but a clutch bag that you can dress up or dress down, this would be an incredible show-stopping piece to add to your collection. And there's also another clutch bag which I personally prefer. I am partial to anything and everything with the collet de chien fastening. In fact, this bag was inspired by a bag that I personally looked at years ago. It's not a bag that I ever added to my collection, but a friend of mine did. We went to look at it together and she ended up picking it up, which I'm not mad about. I ended up getting the G.P.S and clutch bag instead, which in hindsight, I kind of wish I had bought the Medor clutch, which I really do like the look of, although it's not a bag that I would still carry. Anyway, long story short, there is a reinterpretation of the original Medor bag launching, but it is going to be more of a solid boxy trunk shape, and I believe it's going to be available in goatskin and also box. And actually there is another bag which is not a relaunch. It is a brand new design that's kind of similar to the Neo Medor clutch bag, but it is something that we saw on the runway in the men's collection, which I think is called the Kelly Multipocket To Go. It's a bag that we have talked about several times before. It is a really boxy kind of camera bag looking crossbody bag that was part of the men's collection, but of course it doesn't matter which department you usually shop. If you like the look and sound of this bag, if you're looking for a really casual laid back crossbody bag, this is something that you can ask about. It features 3 very separate pockets. The reason I don't particularly love this bag is because it kind of reminds me of a Rubik's Cube, because each and every single pocket has its own Kelly twist closure. Now the reason I didn't really love this bag at first and why it reminded me of kind of a fever dream is because one of the pockets is set vertically, whereas the other 2 are set horizontally. But what I didn't realize is that you can actually turn the bag around. It's something that you can carry both horizontally and vertically, which I actually think is quite cool. But at the same time, it means that one of the pockets will always set in a weird way. That might just be my OCD freaking out, but I really wasn't the biggest fan of this design. I thought that there was just a lot going on, but I know a lot of people will be really excited about this. So if you always like the idea of something like the Kelly To Go, but you felt it was a little bit too narrow, a little bit too delicate for you, I do think it is a more substantial, bolder, just basically a cooler design. The other noteworthy piece from the men's runway show was a new take on the HAC, which is really not surprising. We usually get a new take on the HAC every single season. It is an HAC bag that is made in Togo. In case you don't know what an HAC is, it is the Birkin's ancestor. It is one of the very first bags that Hermes ever launched, and it was specifically designed for equestrians to carry their essentials to the stable, things like their riding boots and even saddles. So these were bags that initially were launched in much larger sizes, and then as time went on and these bags became more popular, they later on introduced them in smaller sizes too, but you will most often find these in 40 and 50 centimeters, which are still the sizes that are available now. And they are a lot taller than the Birkins, also a little bit narrower. And don't forget that the handles are also going to be shorter. And I can't believe I almost forgot, but the hardware itself is also a lot more chunky and substantial. And this is something that will get a new take on almost every single season as part of the men's collection, which I know that the men's fall winter collection was just presented this past weekend, but I want to wait and see if you guys would like me to talk about it now, or if you would want me to wait until the fall winter collection is actually about to launch, because we are far from that at this point. But anyway, going back to the AJC Coupe de Soleil, it is a bag inspired by an afternoon where you spent a little bit too much time in the sun and perhaps you didn't reapply your sunscreen properly, which I would not recommend doing. But it basically features the tan line of the flap, the clochette, and the lock, which I actually think is done really tastefully. I feel like some of these really quirky, playful designs can go a little bit too far and feel kind of cheap and childish, but I think this is done incredibly well. I think if you are looking for an HAC bag that can become a unique collector's piece, but is also classic enough for you to carry it on a more regular basis, this might be something that you want to look in. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, if you're looking for something more playful and quirky, there is a new Cadena bag launching for the season, which again is not a brand new design. It's inspired by a vintage Hermes bag, which Cadena, everything that features the name Cadena is going to be inspired by the lock that you get with your Hermes bags, which of course has a really subtle H edged into it. The original Cadena bag was really cool. It was discontinued and then it was relaunched. I think it was relaunched last year. It was a really short-lived collection. I don't think it was particularly popular. I really didn't see anyone talking about this bag launch or really even carrying these bags, which I can kind of understand because the original bags were kind of just felt really tired and outdated. But these new Cadena bags I actually really like. To me, they look really youthful and fun. They remind me of the little Chanel vanity cases that have been incredibly popular. Or what are they called? Are they called the Coco top handle? I think there is a bag that people used to refer to as the Chanel. I know that there is a new Chanel Kelly bag, which is not the one that I'm talking about. There is another Chanel bag that was more similar to the Chanel Classic flap, but it came with a top handle and also chain. I put in a picture here, which is kind of what this bag reminds me of, except the new Cadena. I think it's called the Cadena pouch or the petite Cadena, something along those lines. This new bag to me feels a lot younger. It's almost like one of those Chanel top handle bags having a baby with a Miu Miu bag. I just really like it. Of course, it features the same H quilting as the original Cadena bag and the H locks, and I really like the shape. It is a little square bag, which I think is just incredibly cute. So if you're a fan of Hermes, but you could never really get on board with some of their classic designs because they feel a little bit too mature for you, this I think is a really cute piece to add to your arsenal. I would love to say that we're ending this video on a high note, but that's not actually the case, which is surprising because the last bag is an exceptional bag in black, which you know how much I love black Hermes bags, and especially exceptional bags, which are usually in some really vivid, eye-catching, loud colors. It's extremely rare for Hermes to launch an exceptional bag in black. So in theory, I should love this, especially because it is part of the Faubourg line. But unlike the original Faubourg bags, which were more like a sculpture than an actual functional bag, this is a lot more user-friendly, but perhaps it is a little bit too dull and too user-friendly because we are getting a new take on the Faubourg design, which is called Faubourg En Fete, and it is inspired by a crazy night at the Hermes mothership at the Faubourg boutique, which, in case you didn't know, Hermes each and every single year selects an overarching theme that will inspire everything that they do, including some of their designs, their packaging, and their window displays. And 2024 is the year of Faubourg, so it is going to be, I mean, it's not like Hermes doesn't create pieces that are inspired by their mothership, but this year it is going to be a Faubourg overload year. And this bag was of course created in celebration of the Faubourg boutique, but I don't think that it is what we would have expected. It is incredibly basic for a Faubourg bag, because instead of the windows actually being built out and then being three-dimensional, they're just simply just sort of scribbled on the front of the bag. And instead of getting an Hermes lock, the lock is actually inspired by a disco ball, which is just kind of the cheapest and tackiest detail I have ever seen on an Hermes bag. I'm sure that it's going to feel really substantial. I'm sure that it is going to be beautifully done. But to me, it is an incredibly tacky detail. It just kind of reminds me of those Christmas ornaments that you can find at the dollar store. I think it is just extremely underwhelming, especially considering that it's supposed to be part of the Faubourg collection, which was so creative, so innovative, and so beautifully crafted. And this is how they're celebrating 100 years of Faubourg. I don't know, to me, I just would have expected a lot more. But if you are an avid Hermes collector and you're looking to add a new exceptional bag to your collection, well, this is the best Hermes has to offer in 2024. My friends, this brings us to the end of today's video on the latest Hermes bag launches. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear if you have a favorite piece in this video, if you are planning on adding any one of these things to your wish list. Have you talked to your boutique about any one of these bags? I am just really curious to hear what you have to say. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And don't forget that if you would like to add a 7RP insert to your collection, my discount code is going to be valid for, I think, one more week. It's going to be around for a few more days. Let me just put it that way. So if you would like to add a 7RP insert to your collection, make sure that you check out my info box. I'll make sure to leave all the details down there. And I will see you back here with a new video really, really soon.